Hey, good to see you. Thanks for coming. This is another episode of Wireframe brought to you by Design Systems House. I'm your host, Don Diamato, and today we're going to be talking about growing community. And to do that, I have an expert in community, I have to say, because a lot of community revolving around this person, and I'm really interested to dive into how he's grown his community. It's Ben Callahan. Ben, it's so good to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me here. It's been a long time coming. Because talking about the things that we do. Just before the show, we were talking about our own things being called podcasts when they're not really podcasts. We like to think that there are a whole bunch more. But Ben, go ahead and tell the folks at home who you are and what's going on.
Dude, thanks so much for having me, Donnie. I know you're right. It has been a long time coming. February, I think we were talking about this, and here we are, clear into July. So I would correct your description of me, of somebody who says, I think you used the word expert of community.
I did.
I consider myself a student of community. I feel like, I don't know, maybe there are experts out there in this, but good grief, there's so much to learn. And it's partly just because I think people are complicated and community is people. So here we go. But you said my name, Ben Callahan. I am the founder of a company called Sparkbox. My co-founder and I started that almost 17 years ago now.
Holy.
So we've been doing this a while. For the last decade or so, we've focused on systems a lot. Almost every engagement we do, has systems involved. We have teams helping organizations like Adobe with Adobe Spectrum and Mozilla with Acorn, big sort of enterprise level systems. I also I have a couple other things that I try to do, kind of like you. I got a lot of plates spinning, so I run a live collaborative learning show called The Question. And so we do that twice a month. I'll talk a little bit more about that if you want to hear more. I also have a design system practitioner community called Redwoods. And then I do individual and team coaching, mostly with folks who are in the system space. And then I also do some consulting. And I am an author. I have a book coming out in the fall. Well, hopefully. And then I do a lot of speaking and a lot of workshops and trainings and things like that. So got my hands in everything.
Yep, sure do. I feel all of that. As the folks that know about me and Wireframe know, there's a lot of stuff, spinning plates and things of that nature. And when I say expert, I'm relating it to me, because I'm seeing a lot of the success, admittedly, that I think that you've had in some of the community aspects that I look up to, right? So as folks, kind of know on the show already, I've been working on my own event called Undefined, right? And the Undefined being in New York, you would imagine being lots of people in New York and lots of hopefully interest. And the challenge, of course, is to grow that community. And I've found that between, what I've seen in your question, and also what I've heard about the Redwoods, and I want to definitely talk more about the Redwoods today, but it seems very successful, and that's why I'm relating expert there to student, but maybe it's junior student to senior student, maybe.
There we go.
Let's do
that.
Right? Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So I think that might be what's happening here. So,
sure.
I think let's talk about the question first, I think.
Okay.
Because that's actually aligned a little bit to Undefined, the show that I've been working on, right? Because the idea about Undefined is that there's something that we need to define, and we're going to bring a whole bunch of people in a room together to define these things. And in the essence of those things, they are very similar. So tell me about how you came up with that concept and how you got a community of people to grow around it.
Yeah, it's so good, Donnie. I love the framing of Undefined. I think that there are so many ways to do this work, and there are so many brilliant people out there who are just heads down doing the work, solving these same problems, right? And they are not folks who are necessarily putting themselves out there to get up onto a stage, develop a presentation, or do a workshop at an event, but they're just as smart as the people on the stage, right? And
Hmm.
I think that's what I wanted to tap into. I remember a moment, I don't remember what event it was, but I was speaking at an event and I was on stage and I was looking out at the people there. And it was a lot of the folks that I could see were folks that I knew,
Hmm.
who were not speaking at the event, who I just knew because I'd read an article or I'd had a conversation with them or met them on like, cold outreach on LinkedIn, just because I just like to talk to people.
Hmm.
And I was thinking to myself, while I'm trying to give this presentation, good grief, these people should be up here,
Right.
And so I think it was just like a little bit of a pivotal moment for me. And I thought, what could we do to sort of like level the playing field of that situation? And so I was thinking about it for a couple of years, and I think at one point, you have an idea and it sort of just simmers. And at some point, I just got kind of pissed at myself for not executing on it.
Mm.
And it was like a weekend. And that weekend, I literally was like, I'm going to email 50 people that I know who are design system people. And I literally wrote 50 emails to these people. And I was like, hey, I'm going to send a question out on Monday, and I'm trying to figure out if anybody wants to answer this thing. I just have this one question. Can I send you this question on Monday? And would you answer it? And so I think most of them said, yeah, of course, send it to me. I sent it out, very manual process. And we got a lot of responses back in that first week, but it was just to 50 people.
Yeah.
And then I was like, if you answer, I'll send you a link to register for a Zoom call. We'll just all get on. I'll share the things that I saw, the patterns in the answers, and then we'll just dig into it together.
Hmm.
And the first episode was very awkward because I don't think anybody really knew what it was.
Right.
But we've as a community, we've started to establish some patterns in like how we think about the questions and how we structure those, and what we do with that data together. So we've now done 77 episodes.
Yeah.
So I have 77 hours of deep
Oh.
conversation about systems related topics. I've been trying to figure out what to do with all this data. So I've got a bunch of cool things in the works. I've been sort of going through it and anonymizing it all, and sort of like trying to find ways to be able to sort of look for patterns across the whole data set. So some of the stuff is really fascinating. So lots to come with that, but that's sort of the origin.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. I mean, just I think the marketing that you just did, just talking about just emailing the 50 people that right? Your
Yeah.
smaller community, and how that's
Yeah.
grown. Because how long has the question been going on now for?
2.5 years, coming up on 3 years, actually.
3 years.
And so we have, there's like I don't know, 1,100 people or so now that get the email on
Okay.
Monday. They've signed up to say, hey, send me the question. I want to get it on Mondays. And then, most of those folks don't answer every week, right? Like, I
Right.
mean, we couldn't do a Zoom call with 1,000 people, but the Zoom format, I also feel kind of like constrains it in a healthy way,
Mm.
as does the requirement to answer. So it's not like a scenario where anybody can just register and come.
Right.
Signing up only means you'll get the email on Monday,
Right.
but if you want to attend on Thursday, you have to answer.
Yeah.
And so it takes a little bit of time, right? It's not a free thing because it costs your expertise. You have to share your learning.
Hmm.
And so that's sort of the thing that in an interesting way kind of like keeps it steady and slow in terms of growth. But it also means that the people who come are invested in the material and in the space, which I think is it's just really cool. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to figure that out on my side with Undefined, because this is the analogous thing, I think, between our work here.
yeah,
Is I think in the case of what you've been doing, I think the cadence of doing it effectively weekly, you kind of know it's happening, right? You
yeah,
kind of know it's going to come, and here's the next one, and the general format of this thing now, because you've been doing it for nearly 3 years also. So you have
yeah,
this cadence that's happening. And then I think the other thing that of course I would say helps yours and makes it hard on mine is the cost and the venue, effectively, right?
yeah,
Because that cost is really just the time, right? And don't get me wrong, I know that you're doing a lot of stuff in the back for
Yeah, dude.
scheduling, right? And you know, wrangling data and all that stuff, and getting the right people at the right times, and all. So there's a lot of. It's not just the time of people who just need to answer the question and show up. There's
Yeah.
time that you're spending behind the scenes that I am also, of course, spending with my work. But I
Yep.
think the you know, the cost of venue and additional, unfortunately, catering, you know, fortunately,
Hmm.
unfortunately, for on my side, is just like, all right, well, I'm gonna have to, like, you know, figure out the balance there, because I've already had some
Right.
feedback about, you know, costs, you know, in terms of, like, again, because it's just kind of like imagine if the question, you know, was in a venue and
Yeah.
had, you know, a little bit of a spread, right, on a weekly
Yeah.
basis. Like, the weekly basis feels like a lot, you know, it feels like a
Right.
lot to, like, go ahead and show up for. So I have to
That's right.
figure out that cadence too. But you know, you were talking a little bit about ideas that you have for the future. Is there, I know there's probably some secret stuff in there, but is there anything that you could share about, maybe, you know, again, no promises, but what
Yeah.
kinds of things are you thinking about?
Well, I think there's, you know, it's funny because my company Sparkbox in 2018, I think, did a probably the first industry-wide design system survey.
Mm,
And we did that for 4 or 5 years in a row. Is it 2018? I feel like it was maybe 2017. And then Zero Height kind of took that over and
yeah,
started running one. And we sort of set that aside as I was ramping up the question.
right.
And I still think there's value in that sort of big once a year, like ask a lot of questions to a lot of people.
Hmm.
But I also just felt like things were changing so rapidly that once a year was not the right cadence, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And so I'm interested in the way things are changing, looking for, you know, patterns over time. And so what I'm trying to do by taking all the responses that we have. So if you think about it, 77 episodes,
Hmm.
each episode has between probably 2 to 5 questions, probably an average of 3 or 4. We get between 30 and 120 answers each of those episodes. So there's a huge amount of data there, you know? And so going through all of that, pulling out any names or references and just like getting that into a format where I can now actually look at things over time, look at the trends over time, and then start to think about what should future questions be based on the things that we've learned in the past, you know? So I think that's a little bit of what I'm looking for. And I think I'd love to make some of that information available to folks probably who are in the Redwoods community, like
Right.
give them the ability to kind of query that, you know, and look for those trends themselves. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that. I'm trying to figure it all out. But
Totally.
the other side that I think is, which is what I love about what you're doing, is that there was maybe a moment, I don't know, probably 6 months ago, where, you know, it's like the rush of all this AI stuff, which, you know, I love tools, I love new things. I'm an experimenter and a tester, and I'm trying all that stuff.
Hmm.
But I am also, um, I was also feeling a little bit like things were just moving. I, I was having a hard time seeing my place in the future
Yeah.
with all of
Yeah.
that change. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And it took me a month or two there to sort of realize that actually my place in that future is not about AI. You know, I love it. I'll keep learning about it. We'll keep using it with our clients, all of that. But that's not what I'm hanging my hat on. I'm hanging my hat on the idea that as that stuff takes over more and more of our focus, we need more time together.
Hmm.
And so that's where I'm thinking about community online with something like Redwoods, but also how do we rally around in-person events, like
Yes.
just getting people away from their computers. We've done now 2 hikes where we go at an event, we'll go out into the woods, find some big trees, and just like have fun together, you know, outside breathing like fresh air and in like nature. I don't know. There's something really powerful about that. So that's another part of what I'd love to start seeing is how do we bring the question community together in person in some capacity, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah. So then, and exactly, that's aligns with what Undefined's trying to do, of course,
yeah.
is bring these people outside. Because you're exactly right. Like, you know, in the same way of how Jen, my wife, and I would look and sit down in the house and go, okay, it's crazy out there, right? What happens, when the rug gets pulled out from underneath us and the AI takes our jobs and all this other, BS that happens? Like,
Yeah.
what do we do? And the thing that I landed on, or I'll say we landed on, is the people part, right?
Yeah.
It's the people part. You got to bring the
Yeah.
people together, and that's and get away from. And I think it's happening even from the young folks, because when I I would teach at FIT, and the students that are 19, 20 years old there, they are actually very anti-AI.
Yeah.
And this is a fine arts school, so there's its own
Sure.
situation there, because
Yeah.
you certainly have students that are out there that just use AI to go ahead and make their paper and call it a day. But I
Right.
would also say that there's something about that as educational thing that might be a separate topic of overall. But the
Yeah.
fundamental piece of that I think I'm getting to here is that there is an adversarial feeling toward AI. I'm not
Mm.
even there was a news piece that the data centers that they're building in Georgia are requiring power, and because they're requiring power, they're potentially taking people's homes to run
Uh,
new lines
yeah.
for the data center. And that's
Yeah.
like not what we're trying to do out here,
Yeah.
and as
Yeah.
much as you chalk it up to being a tool, it's not a tool if it's taking people's livelihoods out there.
Dude. Yeah,
That's
for sure.
the antithesis of this stuff. So it's really going back to the original point of the bringing people together. That's what I also would like to do, but I also
Yeah.
like needs to, I don't know, the other part of it needs to make sense, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, as you know, you're one of the best places to talk about this, is that it takes a lot of work
Mm.
to bring people together, right? Just to
Yeah.
even, throw your own birthday party, if it was like a one year thing, like that in and of
Yeah.
itself, to send invites. And now with the fragmented social media stuff that we have now, it's even harder. And goodness
Mhm.
gracious, so to have a in person thing out there is
Yeah.
just really hard, and especially to start one from scratch. So
Yeah.
yeah. What are you
It's
thinking?
it's good. Well, I think you're tackling it in a really smart way, though, right? Because I'm not in New York, so I didn't get to attend
Mm.
your first one. But the way I understand it is that Undefined is not your normal event, right? I'm
Right.
not paying money to watch half a dozen people get on stage and talk at me for 45 minutes. Like,
Right.
there's value in that, right? We've been doing that for decades. We'll continue to do that, I'm sure. But also, so when I've run a couple events, we used to run a ton of events at Sparkbox, but in the last couple of years, I've run one big in-person event. That was in Pittsburgh. It was called Symmetry, and it was
Yes.
kind
Right.
of a parallel event running alongside Brad's Frostapalooza birthday stuff, right?
Yes, I
So a
remember that.
bunch of web nerds were in town, and I was like, dude, we got to get these people into a
Hell
room
yeah.
to talk about design systems. So we did that, but it was not your normal event where people spoke. What instead, I brought in folks who you would normally see on a stage, who were there, and I said, listen, I want you to think hard about what's a challenge that we are facing as an industry right now. And so I paired them up and put them into groups. There were 3 groups. So we issued 3 challenges to the community in person. And then each of those pairs issued the challenge, shared a little bit of context about it, and then presented a working session with the attendees to try and figure out how do we address that. So we tackled 3 problems together. That was the whole event.
Mhm.
And so I think there's space for that kind of thing, right? Where it's a little bit more collaborative. It's a little bit more crowdsourcing from everybody's expertise. And that's really what the question does. But that event, Symmetry, was just the same thing, but in person.
Mhm.
So I think there's so much, there's power in that stuff. And that's what you're doing,
Right,
So,
right, right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I have so many more ideas of just, you gotta build this community out. So,
Yeah.
talking about maybe even, building a more focused community with the Redwoods, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Redwoods a little bit, because I'm not a part of the Redwoods, and the large majority of the reason
Yet.
why. Yet, yeah, well, it's clear. It's true. It's
Yeah.
yet specifically because of all the stupid plates that I'm throwing up in the air, right?
I hear you, man.
Like
Yeah.
that's legitimately it. And
Yeah.
there's ones that I've talked about on the show. There's ones that I haven't talked about on the show that are like I need
Okay.
to like wrap up and stuff. But I feel like in the where there's the opportunity to go ahead and simmer down a little bit, then I could start, I guess cross-pollinating to the other groups, of course. And I think,
Yeah.
there's certainly a world of, I think we were talking about before the show about cross-pollination, right? You have different groups that need to come together to bring
Absolutely.
these ideas, to life. So
Yeah.
with the Redwoods now, because it's a little bit of a closed group,
Hmm.
can you tell the audience, what the Redwoods is all about and why
Yeah.
they might want to be a part of this thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, like most communities, it is a place where you sort of get some support, right? So we support each other. That's like kind of what a community is in general. And so we try to celebrate when things are going well for folks, and we try to support them when things are tough. We have a lot of folks there's about 120 of us or so in there now. And when, people are going regularly, somebody is posting, my company just did layoffs. I'm looking for a new gig. That's
Mhm.
just like a part of life today, right? So
Right.
when that happens, we rally around those folks, try to help them get connected. Relationships are the only thing that's working right now to get new gigs. And
100%.
so community is like where that's at. Um, I also think it's a place for learning, right? And this is what most communities do in the space. There's there's so much material out there.
Yeah.
So how do we pick and choose what to consume, And having a group of folks who are constantly, finger on the pulse of what's happening and surfacing the things that are really impactful is so valuable. So it serves as like a filter for all the slop that's out there, and like
Mhm.
the sharp things rise to the top.
Mhm.
And so that's another thing. The third thing I would say is that this is maybe what makes Redwoods a little bit different than other communities. I want us to not just be a community of folks who are consuming a bunch of things, but a community that's creating together.
Mm.
So we have this concept of action groups. We have tons of discussion channels and all that stuff, like every community does, but we also have action groups. This is a space where you can say, you know what? Like an example of one, we have a writing accountability group. So if you're in the space into systems and you're like, I want to be more intentional about writing, well, there's a group for that you can be a part of. And that means every month we're checking in and saying, hey, have you written anything? Do you need a review? Like, can we offer each other a little bit of like rigorous critique to like elevate the discourse in the space? So there's that kind of stuff happening. We have projects that we're working on together. We're actually rebuilding the Redwoods website as a community effort.
Oh, cool.
So there's things like that happening. If you want to like, get in and make some stuff, there's just like the opportunities there are, there's an infinite number of things that we could do. So I'm excited about the idea that we are creators, not just consumers. And there's 1,000 other things I could tell you about it, but those are probably the big ones.
I mean, we'll have some time for sure to talk about at
Okay,
least a couple of the
let's do
thousand.
it. Yeah.
But I think that the one thing that comes to mind again, I'm trying to do an analogous thing from what I do, because
Yeah.
I have a Discord myself, or
Yeah.
at least I should say Design Systems House is a Discord, which by the way is there on the bottom of the screen right now, and just in case you wanted to visit that, discord.ds.house. But I think the hard thing that I've had in terms of having people join is easy, like admittedly, and this is because this particular group that I have on, at least on the Discord, it's free to join, easy,
Yeah.
simple to come on. But it's like a matter of the like, okay, well, once you get there, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Right. And that's, I think, the thing that has been a little bit of a challenge for me, because I see other Discords that are out there that are hopping. Right, like I'm on
Mm.
the Code TV Discord, or even like the Astro, or well, I was saying Code TV in particular, I guess, because it's not a SaaS product like Storybook or Astro necessarily is. It's more
Yeah.
of trying to be a community. So it's like beyond me about how to like get the party started, so to speak,
Mm.
in this thing, right? Because
Yeah.
for me personally, like I actually been using the Discord as like a place where I post cool links. Like if I see
Yeah.
a link on somewhere that again is related to the work that we do, I'm just like, great, here's a link that I think would be really cool, but I post that and it's crickets, and I'm just like, but
Yeah.
this is so cool, you know. And
Yeah.
it's so like, I don't know what needs to happen in order
Yeah.
to like get more interest or something like that. And granted, I think in the model that you have, where there is a little bit of a payment kind of or subscription that you end up going for the Redwoods, but I
That's right.
think maybe that subscription is the thing that might be having people say it's almost like the gym membership, where
Mm,
you're basically like, you're doing this subscription, and you're like, because you're paying, you should be doing something, right?
yeah.
And I think there's that positive cycle that's happening, because the things that are happening there are positive, right? You have the action groups, and we were talking a little about the event stuff as well,
Yeah.
right? So you have these things that are also happening in these communities that are building on top of that. So like, where do you see any I guess um what do I call it, areas of improvement for a situation
Like
where I'm in right now?
you're asking about engagement, I think,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. And it's tough, I mean, I certainly don't have all the answers. I can tell you that Redwoods is a year and a couple months old, and we um I think that the price, so right now it costs $50 a month to be in Redwoods,
Hmm.
or you can say I want to pay for the year, and it's 500 for the year, so you get 2 months free, basically, right?
There you go. Yeah.
So that cost really, all that covers is the cost of the tools that we use. So we use Slack, which has a cost associated. So I got to pay for every member. We use
Right.
Figma. So I'm giving people collab licenses in Figma.
Yeah.
I've got, email software. I've got, we host things. We now have like, we got all these things that we're trying to do. Right. And so
Hmm.
I want to be able to do those things with that revenue. We also do fun stuff. Like I print out, I don't have anything sitting on my desk right now, but I do. We like give folks cool stuff when we get together, so like if you come to a
That's
session, you'll
nice.
get a cool Redwoods notebook. We have Redwoods water bottles, and we've got lots of ideas for all that stuff. So there's things that we're doing there, but those things don't necessarily create engagement. I think the money thing is more of like a filter, right? If it's
Hmm.
free, this is like an event too. If it's free to go to an event, everybody will register for it and
Right.
then make a decision day of if they're going to go.
Right.
If it's free to join your community, everybody will register in the moment, but will they engage? Maybe, maybe not.
Hmm.
What I have tried to do, and again, I've not run communities before, so that's why I said I'm a student of community.
Yeah.
I'm a year, 2 years in.
Hmm.
So I've tried to lead not by saying become a member. I lead by saying go read our values, and if you align with these values, consider joining. Because I don't want people in there if they don't believe those things, like just to be blunt.
Hmm.
And so that means we're going to grow slower. I'm not saying go join, go join, go join. I'm trying to figure out who believes what I believe about the space, about systems, and those are the folks I think that will find some place like Redwoods, like a good place for them.
Hmm.
So that's how we're trying to grow. Once folks are in, I mean, we have focused a lot on like, how do we have a strong code of conduct. Where I meet with every new member and I walk them through those values, and I do it 30 minutes with every single person who joins, because I want them to know how important that stuff is. And then the other thing I would say that's tremendously helpful is I can't do all of that on my own. So I've been focusing this year on building into a small group of folks inside of Redwoods called the Redwood Rangers. And so there's a half a dozen of us essentially that are kind of like community leaders essentially.
Hmm.
And so those folks, we get together once a month in a formal way, and we have a private channel in the Slack where we can sort of like, check in on each other and make sure that the community is healthy. And
Hmm.
like I was in June, I was on the road almost the entire month. I was not
Hmm.
in Slack very often, but the Rangers were. And
Yeah.
so I felt comfortable that like things could go well. And there was a layer of folks who really embody those values and invest back in the folks there. So I think that's been really helpful too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really great. I think again, it just seems like it's a matter of growing people and the people grow with you. Like it's that
Yeah.
circle of situation. And I think also you talking about how, um, deliberate you are in the company that you're getting in, right? It's just,
Hmm.
and that's the thing that I've actually struggled with myself, because from my practice of design, is about inclusive design. It's basically like
Yeah.
everyone's included, right? It's just like I don't want to have anyone feel like they're left out. And I got some feedback about Undefined, talking about community, where people told me, they were like, "Well, I didn't sign up because I didn't know if I could be included." And it was like, it was. I was beside myself. I'm like, what do
Oof.
you mean?" And
Yeah.
the reality of that ends up being is, well, you had lots of different kinds of people there. You had designers and developers and product marketers, and even like I had a buddy of mine who's the CEO of his own company there. I had VPs, all that. I had a smorgasbord of different people, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, and that you had all these different people, you couldn't figure out if this thing was for you because they're all different people, right?
Interesting.
So what the recommendation was to focus the audience for Undefined specifically on designers, right? Because that's the majority of the room, and in a lot of actually the testimonials that I had was talking about it being an event for designers. So I'm like, okay, let's lean into the designer thing. But it makes me feel bad because,
Mm.
as a design engineer and as also someone who, is really into accessibility and content design and research and all other kind of, expertise that's like, around product development, I
Yeah.
feel bad not basically saying, sorry, this isn't for you, like, because I want it to
Yeah.
be. I really do.
Yeah.
And maybe that's there's a world where there's, I guess episodes of the event that's like, okay, this is for research or what have you. But
Mm.
like you said, it's being a student and a learning experience of like, okay, well, we tried the first one. Now I'm getting some feedback about that and learning about that. But, I guess there is something about it to me where when you put in so much effort into a thing,
Yeah.
you want to see it succeed so bad,
Yeah.
and you feel awful when it doesn't,
Mm.
right? And I don't know the amount of effort that you initially put into some of the project that you have in terms of the community stuff, but I'll say, like, for Undefined, the platform that I use took me 6 months to figure out, and that's even
Yeah.
just with Claude. It's not just a matter of whipping this out over a week. It was like
Yeah.
6 months of trying to make this thing perfect, and it's still like screwed up on me in the first night. But
Yeah.
the amount of work that I put into the thing, it really just like gets me here, right?
Yeah.
When it doesn't land right, you
Mm.
know? And I don't know, like for the things that you've been working on, the communities that you're building, obviously, like I said, you've been very deliberate, and the slow growth is what you were planning for it. But has there been anything there on your side that has been something that you put a lot of effort in and you just didn't see the
Mm.
fruits of it there? And how you learned how to like pivot maybe in there, or
Oh man,
what
that's a
decisions
tough
you made?
one. Yeah, that's tough. So I was talking with one of the Rangers, Robin, who he's in Zurich, and he and I had a conversation this morning, and we were just reminiscing about how we met. And he had a transition into systems maybe, I don't know, 6 years ago or something, I think. Um, and we were talking about that moment in his career because that's the moment when we met. He said his brand manager forwarded him an article I wrote about design system maturity, and he read it and he was like, oh my gosh, design systems is like its own thing. And so he started looking and he found like all this writing and all the folks like you and others who
Right.
are writing and creating that space for us. And so he reached out to me on LinkedIn, just a cold reach out, and we became friends. And I actually invited him into a Slack group that I was running at the time that was called Teenage Design Systems.
Hmm.
And it was like, this was a trial for me. I think I totally had forgotten about it as like, this is like early days for me of like trying to figure out what would community look like,
Mm.
and so it sounds actually, now that I'm processing this out loud, it sounds a lot like what you described of your Discord, where it was like it was easy to get people to join, but we didn't have a lot of intention in terms of like what are our rituals, like what are the things that we do, what how do we talk to each other, like what's the cadence of, like, in Redwoods now, every Monday or Tuesday folks post a stand up. They say, here's a challenge I have this week, here's something that I've succeeded at in the last week, and here's what I'm working on. And so that gives us material to see, like, what's the community thinking about this week, and then we do a weekly call, and it's usually structured based on the things we observe in the stand-up, so like we've built sort of these rituals, and we just didn't have any of that before. And so Robin has come along on that journey. He's now a Redwood Ranger,
Right.
but he was patient and sort of stuck around and has helped create those cadences, and so that to me felt like, I don't think of it as a failure because I've learned so much from it. Right. And so maybe that's, an area where I've just had a lot of learning, from those kinds of efforts,
Yeah, it's just, I guess it's, you got to try, right? You got to try
Yes.
something, and you got to see, and exactly what you said about the failure pieces, right? Because
Yeah.
there are going to be failures that anybody goes through when you try something. That's the only
Yeah.
way of really kind of learning, right? It's you
Yeah.
learn better when you fail as opposed to when you succeed. Is certainly correct. Like I remember
Yeah.
all the times that I flopped trying to code back in the the aughts and further, right? Just try to
Yeah.
screw around and be like, okay, how the fuck do I make these two boxes center each other? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
the hard
Oh my
things, right?
gosh. Yeah.
But yeah. So I just it just feels like, especially as like an artist first, you put so much time and effort and resources into a particular project, and you want to see this the vision that you had come to other people. But
Yes.
unfortunately, there's not many artists that are also good marketers. I'm still
That's so true.
trying to
Yeah.
trying to figure that out. Claude,
Yeah.
please help me. Take the wheel.
Yeah.
But
Claude, take the
yeah,
wheel.
take the wheel. Because yeah, I mean I think that's if there's going to be a I guess a skill. I mean, it's the skill that the community, I would like to think that hopes help, is exactly what you're talking about with the Redwoods. Is do you really need the marketing if you have the network?
Right.
Right? That if the network is there, if you have your people there, then the marketing is just organic at that point, I think, right?
I
Um,
mean,
yeah,
yeah. I don't know if every business owner would say that, right?
sure.
Like, I think in community, for sure. In business, it's maybe not enough. Sales and marketing are so critical in that world. But can I just like,
Yeah,
can I push back on one thing that you said?
please.
Okay. You said you're going to pivot it, or you're thinking about pivoting your in-person event to be focused on designers because you got feedback that folks weren't sure if they felt like it was for them.
Right.
Um, okay, so obviously, if you say this is an event for designers, all of the designers will know it's for them, and all of the devs will know we're not welcome here, right?
Yeah.
And it's that we're not welcome here that I think you're sort of like, oh, that's not who I am, right?
Right.
And so that's one way to slice the community and to make people know, help people know if they're welcome or not.
Mhm.
But another way would be to say, here's why this exists, right? If you believe in this why, then you're welcome here. And that might mean VPs and CTOs and production level designers and UX students are all welcome because they all have that common belief. That in my mind is a more powerful way to help people identify that they are right for a community than to say if your title has the word design in it. So maybe that's just a challenge to you to say, like, why are you actually doing what that event? What is Undefined about? And if you can be really clear about that has the ability to sort of repel folks who would not be a good fit there and attract the ones who would be. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. It does.
Yeah.
I think that again, the difficult thing comes into the marketing where,
Yeah.
which I've said on multiple occasions, and I love the way that I say it, but I hate that I actually is that my elevator pitches turn into hostage situations.
Wait, what's the elevator pitch for this?
I don't know. Claude, take the wheel. Like that's
Okay.
say it, right?
Yes.
Like I really don't know because the new elevator pitch that I have, which I literally just put on Undefined a day or two ago, was a live game show for designers. That's it. That's all I've
Yeah.
put in to basically just kind of get the gist of it. But I feel like it's meant to be more because
That is
the
that's
whole
what it is.
right.
That's not why it is, right?
Yeah, the why it is that I'm bored, and not in the way that like I don't have enough things to do. It's a matter of me going to events, in tech right now and having only two kinds, right? You either go to some, general networking event, maybe you meet somebody, maybe you don't, maybe you find someone who's completely unrelated to the work that you do, is very awkward, and it's, unless you're an extrovert, right? And there's just like love talking to people, it doesn't really
Yeah.
jive nicely for you, right?
Right.
It may be fun, but it also very easily might not be fun and more anxiety driven. And then the other thing is that you're there for a panel or presentation. So you go there,
Yeah.
you sit down, you listen to somebody who either is somewhat aligned to what you're doing or potentially not even aligned. I mean, the amount of
Yeah.
times that I've been in a room as an IC, even though a high level IC, but as an IC listening to leadership
Yeah.
go, oh, we're thinking about this and thinking about that. I mean, especially when the layoffs are going on, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
and these people are talking about, how it is to be laid off. And I'm like, you people still have jobs and hiring managers. Like, how dare you almost, So the disconnect I always feel like awful about. And sure, there's some opportunities for learning in there too. But I'm just
Yeah.
looking at these two formats and going, we're designers, we're creative
Yeah.
people. Couldn't we figure out something more fun than this, right?
Yeah.
It's just something, and that was the why. That
Yeah.
was just like I still want to bring people together, but I
Yeah.
don't want to use the same format that is over and sure it's tried and true and it's expected and all that stuff like that. But God damn it, we're creative. At
I know,
least I
right?
like to think that we are. So
Dude, this is so refreshing, Donnie.
yeah,
Like this is it, right? I mean, you're making an event for people who believe events are broken. That's really what you're doing,
that's true.
And so that means like anybody who's bored to death with the normal format is welcome, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
The challenge with that is, and this is something actually, I'll tell you what that this might have been a Claude thing that that Claude said,
Yeah.
but the thing that was the feedback about saying, hey, I'm think events are boring
Yeah.
is well now I'm poo pooing on all events, right? And like I don't want to have that connotation either. Like I don't want
Yeah.
to say, "Oh, my event is better than yours." Like I'm not about here trying to like fight people's events out, But that's why I've tried to like, tried to
Yeah.
soften the language or something
Sure.
like that. That's why it makes it a little bit hard about, because
Yeah.
again, like fundamentally, yes, I'm bored at these events. It's the same shit over and over again, and I
Yeah.
want it to be fun and interesting. And we had fun doing Jackbox like things during the pandemic, which is effectively what this is very
Yeah.
aligned to.
Yeah.
So I'm, trying to be creative about it,
Yeah.
and it's not landing because it's too new in some
Yeah.
ways, right? So I'm
Yeah.
trying lots of different directions of how to take it. But I have to say, I do like the idea of the values thing that you're bringing up,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Saying like, okay, these are the values, and I just
Yeah.
need to kind of identify what those might be under the umbrella
Yeah.
of what's been built so far. But that's my hostage
Yeah.
situation since I've had you for a little while.
Yeah, and I love it. I mean, the values thing is interesting because you got to describe what it actually is, not what you want it to be.
Hmm.
It's not aspirational, it's actual. So I would look and see, like, at the moment when I had this idea that I decided to actually do it, what was going on in my head. And it sounds to me like one of your values is you want to have some fun, right?
Right.
Like you want to learn, you want to have fun, and you want to meet other people who want those things too, And so like there, I do think you could boil that down to
Mhm.
something that would be really attractive to the right folks,
Yeah.
But I'm excited to watch you do it, man, because you've got all the energy of like a dozen designers. And so so when you get focused on a thing, it's going to be awesome. So
Yeah, I hope so. I do hope so. Yeah, I think the I I've man, the energy part is that really what it looks like out there? Is that all the
Yes.
energy I have? Is this
Yeah.
what it looks like?
That's what it looks like.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. This is something interesting that I want to talk to you about
All right.
because it's about perception. Okay.
Mm.
I don't know how people perceive me
Mm.
out in the community, right? Like out in the community out there, I'm obviously putting stuff out there and I'm trying this and I'm trying that. And sometimes you get some bites and sometimes you don't. I mean, admittedly, like, at the first Undefined, I got a nice group and I felt really nice about that, kind of emotional about the people who were willing to support me for that.
Yeah.
But, it's so interesting about not knowing, you know, what what your impact is on a particular person or a group of people or whatever. So like for example, I could tell you very very easily that when
Yeah.
I think of you, I think of a person who's always so positive, so nice, so
Mm.
warm, so welcoming,
Mm.
so professional, and such, again, a community expert. I'll bring it back, I don't care, fight me. And someone that I can reach out to as a person who's going to listen, and not only that, but also be able to direct me to resources that are valuable, right?
Yeah.
And to hear that feedback to someone, I've like to hope that means something, right? That like
Yeah.
because you don't
Absolutely.
know how these people out there feel about you.
Yeah.
I know that you commented on Caroline Horn's episode, where
Yeah.
I also gave her lots of praise about the stuff that's going out there.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to ask you to give me any praise here because you actually have done quite a bit of that already, which I really do appreciate. But, but has that a thought that that's ever crossed your mind about, how people are perceiving you in the space that you're working in? I don't want to
Yeah.
call anybody an influencer out here, but
No, no, no. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but any thoughts on that?
This is like, okay, we're getting into like some therapy here.
Yeah, well, this is a
You know,
variety show all of a sudden,
that's
so
right. We'll do
yeah.
it. Yeah, let's do it. I think there's like I feel deeply what you're saying, right?
Mhm.
That like as somebody who cares about community, which we both do,
Yeah.
you have to try to figure out, are the things that we're putting out into the world creating the impact we want?
Mhm.
So that I think is the idea of just like measuring the success of the effort. And I think that's legit. You have to do that. That's how you know how to steer. Um, but there's a danger maybe in connecting that to our self-worth, like,
Mhm.
and this is I think it's something that I struggle with is like, it's hard for me to separate who I am in the design system space or as a community leader in the web space or whatever it is, from just like who I am here at home with my kids,
Mhm. Mhm.
and with my partner. And so I have to be so careful about that. And so I'm learning to sort of figure out. I think for me, one of the things that has helped is to sort of reframe it a little bit in my mind and not be looking for that feedback around like my effort, but to think of it as a collaborative effort.
Mhm.
This works because I'm a community builder, right?
Yeah.
So I could say like, how is the community serving folks? And that is our responsibility as a community to collaborate and evolve so that we're serving people, right?
Mhm.
That's not about me. That's about the people who are here.
Right.
And so it's one way to sort of maybe reframe it a little bit. And the other thing that's helped me, I've said this a bunch of times to folks who in my coaching practice, but it's like, because I'm always helping folks to think, like, I want people to think about what have they learned in the last month and why are they not writing about that? Then why are they not sharing about that? I feel like, personally, I feel like that is our responsibility to sort of like put the things we're learning out into the world. And the reason I think about that is because it's kind of like, I think of it as like a chain link where there's somebody up here who's like way smarter than both you and I, who's like solving crazy cool problems, and they're maybe writing about it and putting it out there. There's also somebody down here who's just getting into the space. If this person reads that article, they're not going to know what the hell's going on. So that means all these people along this chain have to be sharing the things they're learning, which allows folks to sort of like grow in meaningful ways, you know? So that means if we don't put stuff out there, we're creating a gap in the potential for learning for other people, right? So it's almost like our responsibility to do that. And that sort of removes for me the imposter syndrome or like the worry about what other people think. Like, yeah, like what I write, it's not for everybody, you know, like that's okay. There are some people that it's for, you know?
Right.
And so I don't know if that helps. Does that?
I think it helps a little bit. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the thing that I'm thinking about is like, well, from the putting the stuff out there point of view, right? And
Yeah.
that kind of exercise that happens. Like I personally, I don't, as an artist, I've never really had that problem, right?
Yeah.
For me in particular, like I have no problem putting it out there. And in fact, you know, I would talk to other people who write, you know, blogs, articles, and other stuff in the space. Actually, who comes to mind is Matthew Strum on. Matt, he you know, does write, and he has a blog, and his articles are very in depth and thoughtful and stuff like that. And when I was talking to him about how he writes, he goes, "Yeah, it takes me weeks, if not months, to
Yeah.
put down an article." And I'm telling him from the other side, I go, "I could knock out an article in like a few hours."
Yeah.
Right. And it's a very interesting kind of separation there because from his perspective, what he's told me is that he's so concerned about getting it right and being
Mm.
accurate and all that stuff, and which is very commendable. Of course, you want it to be accurate and right. But also, you know, I guess from my perspective, it is the filling the gap situation. Here's the cool thing that I just found, right? And we're going to talk about the cool thing that I just found, and you know, do I know everything about it? No, not necessarily, right?
Yeah.
But I want to put it out there so that maybe some people start playing around with it. Maybe they find their own things about it, right?
Yeah.
And like one of the things that comes to mind for me was. So Astro, which is the web framework that a lot of my
Mhm.
sites are on, had
Yeah.
a big problem with like RSS rendering because it
Mm.
wouldn't do like the markdown properly. If you had like custom components in there, it would just like
Okay.
kind of like throw up.
Yeah.
So I ended up figuring out how to get those components to actually render. So I have a blog
Mm.
post that's all about that. That is not really anything that's design systems, you know, related. It's
Yeah.
just, hey, here's a cool problem that I solved, and that now is like memorialized in Astro like docs and stuff. Like they're like, hey, look at
Awesome.
this thing that they did. So like
Yeah.
it's exactly what you're saying about, you know, filling in the gaps. Like for the folks that
Yeah.
are out there that, you know, have something cool to share, just spin up a blog. Like it's
Yeah.
so easy to do, and you can, you
Oh
know,
my gosh. Yeah.
it's just incredibly easy to do. I was actually nudging Caroline a little bit on our show. I was like, "You have some great things that you've done. I'm waiting for this blog." She's like, "Yeah,
Dude,
I
I have
know."
asked her. I have asked her to write so many times.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, Caroline, listen, we're coming for you, okay?
Caroline, come
We
on.
come on, let's go. But yeah, I mean, even people, you know, that are out there listening out there, that again, if there's something that you've done, you should absolutely share it. I think the
Yeah.
thing that, again, is the thing that I'm grasping onto in the discussion that I'm having about the perception piece
Yeah.
is the larger community building, right?
Hmm.
It's okay. I'm looking at Donnie and his work, and I'm deciding if I want to be a part of it or not, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you actually some background on this too, because I went after the first Undefined. I went out for another meetup and had a buddy of mine that I saw at this meetup, and he goes, "Oh man, I saw your event," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I love Donnie. I got to go," and
Yeah.
then he looks at the ticket price and he gets sticker shock, right?
Uh,
And that, you know, feels bad, right? It's like, well, hold on, you know, like I don't want you to feel, you know, like that kind of way because you like the stuff that I'm doing, and it's, you know, I want you to be included. It goes all the way back to there. So I don't want the perception of me trying to just, you know, make a money grab out of people out here, right?
sure. Yeah.
You know, the reason for that cost is partially, of course, the catering, the videography I had, but also
Yeah.
what we talked about the like the interest thing. I would love it
Yeah.
for this event to be like $8, right?
Yeah.
It shows the interest. You're going to show up. It's not a free thing where I don't know you're going to show up, not going to show up. It's $8. It's only there for identifying commitment, right? That's all it's
Yes.
there for.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out, but again, it's the perception is like, well, now if I make it $8, now what's the problem, right? Is it
Right.
me, right? I don't
Yeah.
know, and that's the thing that I'm trying to figure out, in
Yeah.
in this work.
Yeah, it's hard, man. I've gotten a lot of pushback from there is a group of there's a subset of folks in the space who are like, communities should be free. You shouldn't be charging people for a community,
Hmm. Hmm.
And I don't necessarily disagree with that sentiment, but there are so many costs involved with doing it and the amount of time that
Time.
that it takes. And so like I want to do it well, and I think that does require some cost,
Right.
and so we're talking about ways that we can make it available to folks if they want to be a part of it truly and they can't afford the cost. We're talking about how do we get some sponsorship for that kind of thing, or use a portion of revenue to cover those kinds of scenarios. So I think there are ways to sort of like approach those kinds of pushes, but yeah, I don't know, man. I want to get to New York to go to this thing just because it's your thing.
I appreciate that. I had people come. I'll shout out Alex Wilson. He came from the Maryland area to the first one,
Amazing.
which was awesome. That was so great.
Yeah.
And again, shout out to Caroline. Caroline, you're supposed to come. Remember, you said you're going to come. I'm so sorry. I'm picking on Caroline today. But yeah, I mean, we have two more that are scheduled. We have the one that's coming up on August 3rd, and then there's another one that's in September that's going to be coming up.
Okay.
And then I got to figure out a venue because I'm
Mm.
losing the venue. But actually, with all of the learnings that I'm having here, it is
Yeah.
informing what next steps might need to be, right?
Yeah.
And
Cool.
that's been really helpful. And I think, I think the positivity that you're giving in here about the, saying that the work that I'm doing is good is helping me, of course. So I do appreciate that. And
Yeah, dude.
I think what you're doing out there, building this community of Redwoods, and again, if you're listening out there and want to be a part of this community, Ben's going to go ahead and plug it for sure to make sure I don't screw anything up. But I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to join for sure. That's a very true thing. Both Jen and I, because this is a
Yeah.
design systems house. It's going to be. I'm sure it'll be a good time for us. We're looking forward to it. But yeah, we're coming up on the end of the show over here. So Ben,
Yeah.
anything that you might want to plug out there, let the folks know. Of course, yeah, let them know.
Gosh, I got a lot of things. Let
Oh
me
yeah.
kind of hit them quick. So we've talked about Redwoods. Let me start there. So if you're interested in building community that will stick with you as you move through your career, that's part of what Redwoods is. We also are a community of people who create things. So if that sounds good to you, go check out the values. It's just my site, bencallahan.com/redwoods. And you can scroll down a little bit. You'll see the values. They're right at the top there. Read those and see if that aligns with who you are. And if so, you reach out to me on LinkedIn or jump right in. Happy to have you in the community. If you don't want to spend the money to have that sort of regular daily interaction in Slack with a bunch of like-minded learners, there's another opportunity for you, which is the show that we talked about at the beginning of this show. We do those twice a month. And so there's one next week. And so you can go to the bencallahan.com/the question, and you can put your email in there. And on Monday morning, you will get an email from me that says, here's a question for you to answer. And you'll follow that to a little survey. You'll answer those questions, and then it will give you a link right there at the end on the thank you page to register for the deep dive, which would be this coming Thursday at noon Eastern for 1 hour. And it's just a Zoom call. It's open. The chat's open. We'll have a fig jam. We'll get in there and we'll take a bunch of notes together. Casey Wood is joining me as a co-host this week, and it's going to be a good one. So please check that out. I also do coaching. So if you're in a transition, if you're a systems thinker and you're trying to figure out what's next, or if you're trying to figure out how do I get the promotion, or if you're looking for your next gig, like whatever those things are, I can help with all of that. I have very specific systems in place in the coaching program that help you figure out how to create some momentum around your own voice and sharing the things you're learning in meaningful ways, using research to build relationships with the organizations where you want to have a job. So tons of information I can share there. That you can just, the website has a little coaching section you can also click on. And the last thing is that my company Sparkbox I'm sort of like like more of like a principal consultant there. So I engage with our clients more on a high level strategic and coaching level with the leads on the systems. But I have a team of folks who are design system practitioners, and we come in alongside big organizations and small ones, and we just help them move things along. So if you need a team of folks who can support your systems work, that's what we do. So I'd be happy to engage that way.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you got Randy on Sparkbox, right? Randy Ost?
That's right.
Right. He was
Yeah.
on the show
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago. Loved
Yeah.
him.
That's right.
He had that really hot take about not naming systems. I still actually really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so great to have you. Thanks for sharing all of that and a little bit of the therapy that I guess maybe I needed, maybe a whole bunch of else people out needed out there. And
We both did, buddy.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But again, thank you so much for being on the show, Ben. And I thank you for watching. It's been so great here to learn with Ben, of course. And if you learned something, go ahead and leave a comment down below on the YouTube video. But while you're there, of course, like and subscribe. You have to do it, right, just to get notified the next time that we go live. And feel free to continue the conversation on the official Design Systems Discord. We talked about that at discord.ds.house. Play nice in those comments, and I'll see you on the internet. Bye.